Welcome to Art in the Raw. I'm your host, Ann Kelly, and today I'm excited to introduce you to my friend, Rob Danson. Rob is a musician and he just finished recording his album. Welcome, Rob. So where are you today?
So I am in my place in Los Angeles, California. And yeah, been living here since I moved from Colorado in 2003. So
It's been a pretty good place for you, hasn't it?
yeah, I moved out here to do music. I've been doing that since 2003. I've been in and out of bands, different bands. I've fronted bands. I've just been the guitar player. I've all different genres from indie rock, alternative rock. I was in a folk Americana band at one point as well. And I'm currently playing with my buddy Michael Rosenbaum, who some of you might know him. He played the character Lex Luthor on the TV show Smallville. He also has a really popular mental health podcast right now called Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. And we've been friends for over 10 years now and started playing music together probably about 4 years ago. We used to be in a band together called Left on Laurel. We put out an album last year and decided to change stuff up a bit. When the pandemic hit, we just got into crazy songwriting mode, and probably since like April, we've been writing and writing and writing, and now we're at the very tail end of coming out with this new album.
That's awesome. And this is the second album, right?
It's the second album that I've recorded with Michael.
You said you were already shooting some photos for it.
Yeah.
Some photos recently. You want to share those with us?
Sure. So Michael and I have a friend who lives up in the Hollywood Hills, and they're these basically big hills that look over Los Angeles. And this individual has a house that you couldn't get a better view. It's just ridiculous. So this just happened like a few weeks ago. We had this is me and Michael. We're at my friend's house, and then we did like another shoot or another. This was like when the sun was setting.
Who's the photographer?
It was this guy Maddie Mazant. He's awesome, super talented dude. And LA, a lot of the times LA is super smoggy. This was a clear day, which is kind of rare. And you could see all the downtown LA in the background and all that fun stuff. And then here's a picture of us in Germany that when we were playing last year.
Very cool.
I mean, this is going to air in February. So by then, hopefully we'll have our sunspin.com website up.
Yep.
And so we'll have t-shirts, we'll have our CD, we'll have probably streaming stuff. I think we're gonna get like coffee mugs and all that good stuff as well. So there's like a bunch of cool merch we're gonna get. So
well, I can't wait. And how did you and Michael meet originally?
LA is such an entertainment industry. You never know who you're gonna meet. And I was actually doing online dating, which I still do. I ended up dating this girl for a while, and she was in the film industry doing costumes. And she invited me to a party, and Michael was there, and we totally hit it off. Shortly after, we co-created a short film together, and I jumped in to do the film score, which was my first time ever doing anything with film and with music. And since then, I did 2 shorts and a feature-length film with Michael. And then after all of that, we then decided to play music together, and the rest's been history. So
the new band is called Sunspin.
Correct.
But prior to that, the band was Left on Laurel, right?
Correct. Yeah. So Left on Laurel, crazy story. I mean, it just started out where I had been in and out of bands for so long, and I was the quote unquote struggling artist. I mean, just putting in, any savings that I had with my day job putting that into the album or promotion or touring or whatever, and just not seeing any return on my investment, like just nothing. And after doing that for years and years and years and dealing with a bunch of rejection and all this stuff, like it kind of got to the point with me where like it was really just really bad for my mental health. And I started to sort of hate doing art. And I decided to quit, and I quit doing music. And I was, I reinvented myself. I started working in nonprofits, which I currently do still. I work for a nonprofit that helps homeless people in Los Angeles. That's kind of my day job. Several years, 4 years ago when I quit, Michael got me and like a few of our friends together to just have fun and jam in his little basement rec room man cave area. We had a bass player and a drummer who were just kind of starting out. It was like a total shit show at first. And like the bass player was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I was, I took him under my wing and I was helping him like figure out stuff. And we were basically just playing covers for a good year. And after a year of just hanging out and playing covers and just having like a guy time, hanging out, whatever, we started to write our own songs. And after we wrote about 2 songs, we had a friend of ours in LA that was like, oh my God, you're writing songs. I'm headlining the Troubadour, which is like an iconic venue in Los Angeles. And he was like, I'm headlining the Troubadour. Why don't you open for us? And we're like, we only have like 2 songs. And he's like, I don't care, just come up, just play. We already have an opener anyway, but you can just come up right before them, play your 2 songs. So this was, I had been playing shows, for years and years and years. I've been playing countless of shows, but everybody else, this is their first gig, was a sold out show at the Troubadour, which is ridiculous. And so right after we played that show, which went surprisingly very well. I mean, my bandmates were nervous as shit, but they pulled it off. It was fun. The same guy that booked us, that was headlining that show, he was like, hey, so in 6 months from now, I'm doing a little tour in Germany, like a little road trip in Germany. And I actually have like a booking company and I bring bands out there and blah, blah, blah. You guys should come and tour with me in this little mini tour. It's like a week-long mini tour in Germany. And when we told him the same thing, we're like, we only have like 2 songs. And he was like, yeah, but that's like 6 months from now. Just write more songs. So we busted our ass, and 6 months later, we had like 10 songs, and maybe like a few covers. And he flew us out there, like all expenses paid, like plane tickets, hotel rooms, all that stuff. And we did this like kind of like an indie DIY road trip around Germany. We did Berlin, Cologne, and Frankfurt, and played in front of like 200 people per show. And it was super, super fun. And it was great.
Not to say you gave up, but you had put your whole life into playing music and you decide to take this break, and then all of a sudden that just happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did. I literally gave up, and it was one of those things where it was like, when I stopped trying, that's when everything that I had spent years and years and money and time and energy and whatever, sweat and tears to do, and I couldn't do it. Right when I said, fuck it. Can I say that? Can I say a word?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Right when I did that, all of a sudden, it was just like, okay, here it is. So, it kind of worked out. So, and it's been fun. It's been a blast, like Left on Laurel was super fun. Basically, at the end of the day, there were creative differences with the band members, but we're all still friends. We hang out, but it just kind of got to a point where Michael and I were like, yeah, let's just kind of do our own thing and try something new. So it's been fun.
I've always wondered about that with music, in terms of most of my artistic practices in my life. It's usually been some sort of visual arts, which is usually kind of a solitary practice. So I've always just kind of wondered.
It can get complicated. I mean, it's basically what you're dealing with. It's kind of like it's like dating or like a marriage, but instead of two people together, you got four or five people together. And when you're dealing with art and creativity, there's always egos and different opinions and in a direction, whether and direction can be two things. It could be either artistic direction or business direction. Um,
Mhm.
and and if there are two opinions that are completely, opposite of one another, that's when and there's not really like a lot of compromise, then that's when, shit can hit the fan. And, I mean, you see it all the time, like bands breaking up, and as a fan, you're of the music, you're like, why the hell did they break up? Their music was so amazing. Well, there's so much complication in the background that you don't even know about, and bands can break up for so many reasons. And we had so many fights. I mean, fights. It was just ridiculous.
Well, you
So
figure if everybody is all in and just super passionate about what you're doing, that's just naturally gonna happen. If you're a painter and you're just super driven to paint the painting, but all of a sudden you're painting it with five other people. I just can't even imagine what that
yeah,
that
yeah.
might be
And,
like.
and, and the thing is that like everybody can be just as driven. But if
Mhm.
there's that creative difference, like if like the paint, one painter's like, well, I want to color it orange, and the other one's like, no, that's stupid. It has to be blue. I want to make a landscape. No, I want a person. I want to paint this. And then that's where all the creative, both of them can be super driven and super motivated, but you got to be on that same page. And
Right.
so it's tough. It's tough. And Michael and I, luckily, like we really complement one another and we do share a vision. And that's why, we decided to continue to work together. And yeah, it's not perfect. I mean, there's been times where I screamed and yelled at him and he's yelled at me and we've raised our voices and blah, 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 blah. But we also understand each other well enough to, compromise or, see each other's views or know also when to back down too.
Right.
So and that's another thing too. So like with a band, there's a lot of people in bands, a lot of musicians that say, everything needs to be equal, the Three Musketeers, all for one for all sort of a thing, which is
Mhm.
nice in theory, but in
Right.
practice it never really works out. And you really need someone to steer the ship. And usually that's the front man. And
Mhm.
there's two types of band members, right? You got your front man, and then you got your backup band. And in this particular scenario in Sunspin, and also in Left on Laurel, I was the backup. And it doesn't, for some people might think, oh, that doesn't sound too glorious or whatever, but it's like I know my part. I know what my lane is. And
Mhm.
there's certain times where like I voiced my opinion with certain things, but at the same time, I know when to back down. And I
Mhm.
think I've also learned that through experience because I've also been the front man. I've been on the other side of the table. And I've been super frustrated with band members who are just like, they just don't get what the pressure is like for a front man who's basically the you know the showcase, the eyes, all the eyes when you're playing on stage, whatever, most of the eyes are on that one person. And so I know what that's like. And so now that I'm on the other side and I have that empathy, I just know when to speak up, and I also know when to back down. So it just takes time. It's, I've been doing this for years, and if this had been my first rodeo, I probably wouldn't be playing with Michael right now because I probably would have been a dumbass and said it was all about me when it really wasn't.
But I mean, yeah, I could only imagine, like, I mean, just maybe even 1 year into a band, everybody's on the same page, and then somebody wakes up the next day and has this vision for something new they want to try, and
I, I did that. I was in a band in college.
Mhm.
When I was at the University of Colorado, I was in a band, and it was kind of, I was just the lead guitar player, but it was kind of like a Dave Matthews, Pearl Jam, acoustic band. Um, and all of a sudden, Radiohead's album Kid A came out. And I listened to that the day it came out, and I was like, I got to quit this band and do something different. This is, the stuff I want to do. I actually never ended up doing that. Like, Kid A is very electronic, weird, like experimental stuff. But I did, once I quit that band, I kind of merged more into like the indie rock type of stuff. But that's what happens. I mean, like sometimes it's like you'll hear something or be influenced or just wake up and be like, what am I doing? So.
Well, and that seems like a natural and healthy thing to.
Yeah,
And you started playing music when you were 9 years old.
Yeah, I got forced into it by my parents, kicking and screaming. I hated it, but they forced me to play, to take lessons, and
This would be your
they
parents?
gave me the choice of piano, guitar, I think violin. I think those were like the three choices, and I decided guitar. And for years I was pissed. I hated it. It was so horrible. And then my best friend who lived across the street from me, when we were 13, when I was 13 years old, my best friend got like an electric guitar, and then another friend of ours in the neighborhood got a drum kit, and another one got a bass, and they started getting into a little band together. And I was like, I want to be in that band with them. So my parents got me an electric guitar for my birthday, and then they couldn't shut me up. So
at that point, you weren't angry about it anymore. You accepted.
No, and I've thanked them.
So I didn't mention this earlier, but I've Rob and I have known each other since the mid 90s.
I would say 96 or 97. So we met in high school.
High school, yeah. And I recall in seeing a performance you did in high school with this whole classical guitar performance.
When I was in high school, I took some classical guitar lessons, and I actually majored for one semester my freshman year of college. I majored in classical guitar. There's a lot of finger picking techniques and stuff that kind of carried over to my other, rock songwriting and stuff like that. So even if it was a completely different genre, it definitely enhanced my songwriting and my style.
Well, that was a long time ago, but I just remember feeling really kind of blown away, and it just having a moment of like, oh, that's my friend. I was so proud, and I still am.
Well, it's cool. I mean, like we've seen each other like with doing our art stuff. I mean, like I remember like in high school hanging out with you in the dark room, developing your photos and all that stuff. So, and we both, come a long ways, and we're still doing our own art and photography, and you're working at the gallery and all that fun stuff. So it's good. It's good that we're still, even now, years and years later, we're still, doing our passion and being artistic, which is good.
We're still in it, and we're still in touch.
That's rare, yeah.
So one of the other things I happen to know about you, because I've known you for a long time, is before, I think I have this right, before you went to school in Boulder to study music, you got a degree in international business as well. Do I have that right?
The other way around. So
okay.
It was an international affairs major, which is like business and economics and, politics, poli-sci, whatever. But with sort of like an international, flair to it. And once again, sort of like pressured in doing that by my parents. After I majored in classical guitar for a semester and realized it wasn't really what I wanted to do, then I was like an undeclared major for a bit. And then I was like, I just don't know what I want to do. And so, my dad was involved in like investment banking in Mexico for years before I was born, and just kind of pressured in through that. They were like, do this. This is what you should do. And looking back, I feel like I should have done a completely different major. I barely passed college. Like I barely passed. C's. I got a bunch of C's and like a few B's and stuff like that, but it just I wasn't passionate about it. I mean, that's basically what it was. And it wasn't like I partied all the time. I didn't go to school. Like I went to school and I studied my ass off. I was just like, I just struggled trying to grasp, a subject matter that I just didn't care about. I think that's really what it was. So I mean, I did it. But it was really right after that, right after college, like a few months after college, I was like, screw this. And then I packed up all my stuff and moved to LA just to do music. And
okay, maybe it wasn't your passion, and maybe that wasn't the career you moved into. Are there some, I would think there would be at least some things you learned in getting that degree that maybe have been applicable to
the one
right after
thing that I
college?
learned was work ethic. Right? I mean, that's basically it. Like just, going to classes, doing the assignments, completing all that stuff, doing all that stuff, like that's gave me sort of the work ethic and the drive that I continue to have now. So when I moved to LA and I was, fresh out of college, I was like 23 years old. I went into music school where I took a 6-month course called the Independent Artist Program, where I taught you how to create, produce, and promote, record your own music as an independent artist. And there were, I graduated the course, whatever, at the top. I was the top of my class. I got like the best project award, whatever. I got hired on afterwards as part of the faculty. And so I worked there for like several years. And the big difference that I noticed, there were like, there were the slacker kids that treated this like rock and roll high school, that would come completely unprepared, wouldn't do their work, whatever. They were disruptive in class, blah, blah, blah. And then there were the other kids that were, just super motivated and got their shit done. And the big difference, and there were always exceptions to this, but the main difference was the people that went to college and the people that were straight out of high school or hadn't gone to college,
Sure.
And so for me, it was like, I got that, wild partying, whatever, out of the way and from college. And that when I moved out there, moved out to LA, I was like, I'm ready to work and get everything done. And so basically what happened. So.
Well, and that's a huge thing in art making and music and any sort of creative direction you're going in. I think, I mean, there's so many talented people out there, but if you are not putting the work in and really just going for it, if you are not all in, you can be as creative and talented as they come, but it's unlikely you're going to make it. So it sounds to me actually that was very helpful in that maybe you didn't go there, but you knew what it took, and you're still doing it. So
exactly.
And so all of your band names are pretty interesting. I assume all of the titles of the different bands have been collaborative, but how have you arrived there?
Band names can be super tricky. Like we've, like with Left on Laurel, for example, it was okay. So when we were first playing, this is the funniest story. So when we were first playing in Michael's little man cave thing, just doing covers, and like had no idea that we were going to go to Germany and play the Troubadour and do whatever. We called ourselves, because it was just a private thing. We were just a bunch of dudes having fun. We called ourselves Shit Sandwich. So we were Shit Sandwich for a while. And then all of a sudden, our friend's like, hey, play the Troubadour. And we were like, oh, we can't go up on stage at the Troubadour as Shit Sandwich. And so we made a compromise to the Sandwich. So for a while, we were the Sandwich, which half of the band was like, awesome, this is the best band name ever. Michael and I were just like, this is just embarrassing. Like, hey, I'm in a band. Oh yeah, what's your band called? The Sandwich. The Sandwich. Like, the stupidest name. Like that was my opinion. It was like the stupidest name ever. And that was like one of the big fights that we had. Like Michael and I are like, we got to change our name. And everybody else was like, you guys are idiots. That's our name. This is what we do. We're fine. And so like we bickered and bickered and bickered. But then, at the end of the day, Michael's a front man. If he says the band name needs to go, that's what's ended up going to happen. And I happen to agree with him on that too. And so we came up with all, it was like we were trying all these different names, and then we ended up going with Left on Laurel Boulevard. No, Laurel Canyon. Sorry, it's called Laurel Canyon. It's a road in LA, and we would take a left on Laurel to go to our rehearsal space. So that's basically how that happened. But when we made that change, they're like, some people were pissed. The people, because like when we first went to Germany, the first year we went as the Sandwich, and we got a bunch of fans, and they were, like we got letters. We got letters written out, angry letters like, I will never think of you as any band other than the Sandwich, and like, how dare you? It was so funny. So
your sound didn't really change at all between being the Sandwich and Left on Laurel.
No, it was just the band name.
Yeah,
it was just the band name. It wasn't the sound. Left on Laurel versus Sunspin. It's a more evolved sound. So on one hand, Michael has been writing a lot more since then, and he's grown a lot. I've grown a lot by working with him, and so our collaboration has grown a lot. But the big difference with Sunspin, especially this album that we're about to release, is that we got to bring in a ton of amazing, super talented session players, from violinists to a pedal steel player. We just got this amazing keyboard player, Ty Bailey. I haven't even met him yet. Our producer / engineer worked with him. And so Ty Bailey is the keyboard player for Katy Perry. And our engineer was like, hey, I think these songs would sound really good with organ. I know this guy that plays organ and keyboards and stuff like that, kind of like a Bob Dylan style stuff, a B3 organ. Let's have him take a stab at it. And I just got the tracks today, and I was like, this is ridiculously good. So I'm happy. There's a lot of cool people on the record.
So in terms of the record, the kind of main musicians are you and Michael, but then you're bringing in guest musicians. How will that work in this crazy pandemic year? Will you all be playing in a studio but kind of distanced, or will some of the music be added in? So how does that work?
So right now, we've been doing this. we actually started doing this with Left on Laurel, the Left on Laurel days, but we've, since the pandemic started, I think it was since May, Michael and I have been playing these online shows every month for like one Saturday a month. It's the last Saturday of every month, and we do 2 shows on that Saturday. We do a 2:00 show and then a 6:00 show, and it's an online show through a platform called Stage It. It's Stage, then IT, Stage It. And people can buy tickets, attend the show, and there's like a little chat box where people can chat, and then in between songs we're reading the chat thing, we can interact with them and all that fun stuff. So far it's just been Michael and I, or me and Michael, just basically in his little man cave rec room thing. Just it's really easy. We open up a laptop, I plug in a nice USB microphone, and then we just set it up right in front of us, and we just sit on a couch and play acoustic guitar and sing. And it's like super simple setup, and it's been working really fine. We could potentially bring in some other guest musicians, have them come in with that sort of a setup. But right now, because of the pandemic and social distancing and stuff like that, it's like, it's just kind of tough. So I have like a very small pod of friends that I hang out with, and Michael's one of those. And so, we feel comfortable hanging out together in the same room. But, it's just weird times. It's weird times. So
Definitely. But in terms of recording, would the other musicians be in other locations and
Oh
then
yeah. So we've done
digitally synced together? I'm just, yeah, I don't know how that
we
works.
did this album, it's turning out to be quite a massive album. I mean, we recorded in several different locations. So we first recorded what you call as the rhythm section, and that's drum, bass, and guitar, and we all went in and played live together in one recording studio. And once we laid that all those tracks down, the drums, bass, and guitar, then we started adding tracks on top of all of that stuff. Michael came over into my little bedroom closet of all things. And I set up my microphone in there, and a bedroom closet has like a bunch of clothes and stuff everywhere. It actually works really well as a vocal booth. So when you're singing and you're not in a enclosed vocal booth, you hear a lot of echo. And if you're in a professional vocal booth or a closet that has a bunch of clothes that kind of dampen the sound, it basically sounds a lot better. So I recorded like almost all of his vocals in my bedroom closet. And then we rented out a few other studios, recorded, violin and stuff like that. Our violin player today actually did a session at her own home. She does a recording setup, so she did that. We have our friend Emma Fitzpatrick, who is an amazing vocalist. She lives in Nashville. So she recorded some harmonies, female harmonies in Nashville. That guy I was telling you about, Ty Bailey, the keyboard player, he did that from his home. So technology now is you can do a lot of stuff anywhere and share files and all that stuff. So, and just makes it a lot easier.
I believe it. So, I mean, I don't really know. Is that, were people making music that way pre-pandemic? Or, I mean, I could see how that would be necessary, or not even necessary, but just in terms of maybe one guy's in Nashville and one guy's in LA and it's just more convenient, or do you think that's really picked up more in
I think it's definitely picked up since the pandemic, because that's the only way you could really do it. However, this technology has been around forever. I mean, not forever, but for many, many years. And file sharing and doing this kind of stuff happens all the time, and it also happens not only with music, but also like anything digital, like film and all that stuff. You do you do something in one studio, send the file to somebody else in another studio, whatever. So it happens. There's an old band called the Postal Service, which was Ben Gibbard, I think that was his name, from Death Cab for Cutie. It was his like side project. And what they ended up doing, because I think that this was like really before like crazy digital technology where you could just like email stuff, like zip up a file and send it through, you send it, or, one of those, Google Drive or whatever, because this was, I think, was like in the 90s or early 2000s, whenever the Postal Service was around. But I think what they did was they ended up like going into a studio. I think it was like a bi-coastal thing, and like they went into the studio and then dumped everything onto an external drive, and then physically mailed the external drive over to, whatever other state that the other people were, and that's how they kind of collaborated and made their album. So it happens.
Wow. Honestly, that's one of the things I missed the most this year, is seeing live music. So it's cool that you've been able to continue to play shows and other people have been focusing on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same experience, you're watching something on a little computer screen or whatever, and the picture's not great and the sound might not be that great or whatever, and you're also not there in person, and so there's that's definitely lacking. I mean, there's no substitute for the live in-person experience, but it's better than nothing. It is what it is. And the other thing that I've been doing, actually, I mean, it's not like live stream, but since the pandemic that I haven't been able to see like actual shows, I've actually gone on to YouTube and watching, pre-recorded stuff from like back in the day, and I'm like, oh, what band do I want? What band do I want to watch now? So I ended up doing that. And I did that with like a few of my friends. Like we just like sit there and just watch like an entire show And that's super fun. And, you know, I can do that after the pandemic too, but I hadn't really done that before, just like watched like an entire shows on YouTube. So, but there's some good stuff out there. So.
No, I feel like that's a lot of people have been kind of looking back in time this year in terms of music, movies, different things like that. That was, you know, meant a lot to us in the past that we hadn't really given a lot of thought to recently. Is there a band perhaps from high school?
That's funny. Yeah, cause band from high school that I ended up started watching like live stuff from was Nine Inch Nails.
Mm-hmm.
So, which it's not, I don't really listen to Nine Inch Nails. I mean, you know, for nostalgic reasons, I will every once in a while, but you know, I've kind of moved to different genres, but I was like, I kind of want to watch. So I started watching something from like the Downward Spiral tour, and those guys, I mean, Trent Reznor and then all the rest of his musician buddies that he has up on stage, I mean, they put on a show. So that was a good one. But the latest one I saw, it was actually before our time. It was Talking Heads. They have this show, it's recorded show. You can buy it, whatever. It's not like a bootleg or anything. It's like an actual production. There's this big theater in Hollywood called the Pantages Theater, and they usually do musicals there. But he did a show, I think it was like in like 1984, 1983 or something like that, just like a full-on show, and it's regarded as like one of the best video recorded live shows out there. And it was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And that was one of like my highlights of the pandemic, was actually watching this show. And I was like, this is just outrageous. This crazy Talking Heads stuff. So I would recommend seeing that one.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
That's super cool. No, I mean, there was days when we first started working from home where one day, and then with being able to stream music now, you can kind of just go, oh, like one day I was just working and I just started feeling like, oh, I need something different. And I ended up listening to Bikini Kill all day. Like I hadn't even thought about Bikini Kill probably since high school, but it was just, I don't know. I think just kind of this like angsty part of feeling like I was on lockdown again. Where I was like, I'm going to listen to this. And you know what? It made my day. So,
yeah, there's, you know, and that's, you know, sometimes you just got to go back to your roots and just like listen to stuff. So I do that. I do that every once in a while. You know, I mean, my tastes have completely changed since high school, but of course there's days where I'm just like, oh my God, what about this band? What about that band? So it happens.
Well, I'm curious what you think about this. With a lot of the music I love from back in the day, I often think about if this was a brand new band, if this music was just coming out in 2020. I don't know that I would like it at all, but I absolutely love it because it has all of those memories from back in the day.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing with books or movies or anything. I mean, it's like, you know, as you age, you grow, you change, you evolve, you get different tastes, whatever. And so, yeah, the stuff that I listened to in high school, I wouldn't like now. There's no way. And also, conversely, the stuff that I love now, I probably would have hated if I had known about it in high school. You know, and it's just it is what it is. But there's that nostalgic thing, you know, that you'll continue to love or like something on a nostalgic level even years and years later, just because of those memories and how it made you feel back in high school and all that stuff. So
definitely, I've definitely got some songs on my playlist that I think some people that know me from today, if they walked in, they'd be like, what what are you listening to?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've evolved. I've changed. For me, it was starting around when I was 13 years old. That's kind of when I started getting into rock and roll. And if I go all the way through basically college, that's when I would kind of reinvent myself musically in terms of what I listened to and what I liked in terms of whatever genre that was. And that reinvention, there was a cycle, and it would reset itself every 3 years, 3 or 4 years. So I'd go from one genre 3 or 4 years to another genre, 3 or 4 years to another genre. And I kept on doing that up until I graduated college. And since college, it's like I still kind of just listen to the same kind of stuff that I was listening to in college. But I think that's kind of where I kind of peaked in terms of my my musical tastes that I'll probably still carry on for the rest of my life, unless there's some new chapter in my life that all of a sudden I'm like, nah, I don't want to listen to this anymore. Maybe I'll start listening. That's what happens, like people start listening to like smooth jazz, and maybe that's our next chapter. We'll be rocking out to Kenny G and all that fun stuff. So
I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's gonna happen, Ann.
Do you have a few favorite bands right now?
My all-time favorite band, which I discovered in college, is Pavement, which is like an early 90s indie rock band. And so that's like that, unless something changes in my life, like I will always be that. Behind me, there's a dude right there behind me in that picture, and that is Nick Cave. I got into Nick Cave in my mid-20s. I'm not the biggest fan of his latest work. The last few albums, I'm not the biggest fan of, but like his older stuff, I'm just, head over heels about. He's been a big influence of mine musically. Radiohead is a huge one. There's a lot. There's a band called Granddaddy that's kind of like an indie rock band that I love. I'm more into like the indie rock stuff, which is kind of like the less mainstream. If it's not super mainstream and poppy, that's kind of the stuff that I'm listening to.
Do you happen to remember? So I'm assuming the first album you ever owned was a cassette tape, because it was for me. Do you remember the first cassette tape?
There's 3 of them, and I don't know which one I got first, but I just know that there's 3 that were one of the very first ones, which was CNC Music Factory, which is ridiculous. Then The Simpsons had put out an album called The Simpsons Sing the Blues, and it's and it's like Bart Simpson singing, and he did like this. There's this really like famous rap one called The Bart Man.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Songs. And so like that was like the single off that album. And so there's one that Marge sings, one that Homer sings, and maybe there's like a duet with the 2 of them. I don't even remember, but yeah, it was called The Simpsons Sing the Blues. And then the third one was DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
Nice.
I'm the rapper, he's the DJ. So that was like, I guess I was like 12, 11 or 12, something like that. And then it was really when I was 13 was when I started getting into rock and roll and started to really get into music. So but yeah, those. What's your tape?
I think I got my first tape. I started young, but my dad was super into music, and it was a David Bowie tape, but I will admit that it was the Labyrinth soundtrack.
Okay, and I know David Bowie was in the Labyrinth. Did he perform on the soundtrack?
Oh yeah. So if you haven't seen the Labyrinth recently or ever. David Bowie was the Goblin King. The entire soundtrack of that movie is David Bowie.
Okay.
But they were songs written specifically for the Labyrinth.
I'll have to revisit it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it since I was a kid. So.
It's one of those movies where I can't say I love it as much as I did when I was a kid. I mean, I think part of it is like the main character, Sarah, when I was a kid, she was like this cool older girl. And now I watch it and I'm like, oh, she's a little kid. And I don't know, there's certain aspects of it, but I've got to appreciate it. I think I started buying tapes, or I guess I didn't have money. I guess my dad bought them for me. I started getting tapes when I was maybe 6 or 7. So I also had Tiffany. I had the Tiffany cassette tape and Taylor Dane. Those were the first 3. I was serious about my cassette tapes. So
Nice.
super funny now. I had like a little portable tape player and I'd walk around with it, like kind of boomboxy style. But I lived in the mountains and there was no one around, so.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little portable tape player too, and I would do like, but it wasn't like music. I would do like skits and stuff on it. Like I had like a lot of blank tapes, and I would record me just doing skits and weird stuff, and who the hell knows.
We did that too, but that was maybe when we were like, I don't know, maybe 13 or so. A lot of my friends and I, we'd rent video cameras and we'd make up fake commercials and record them. And I don't know why, but.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I remember this. I had my little tape recorder, and like we were driving up to the mountains, and it was like a long car ride, and I was in the back seat and my dad was driving and my mom was in the passenger seat, and I had my little tape recorder, and I remember this because I was so proud about what I did. Was I hit record on the recorder, and my parents didn't know that I even had this or what I was doing. And then all of a sudden I started like whacking my dad's head on like the back of my dad's head as he was driving, and he freaked out, started screaming at me like, "What the fuck are you doing? Stop that!" Ah! And then I just stopped the recorder, rewound it, and then played it back for him.
Oh.
And it was the funniest thing ever. I thought it was so great.
I feel like I had no idea I sounded like that one.
It was like this plan I had, and it worked out perfectly, and I was so proud about it. That's my tape recorder story.
Oh, that's funny. So, in terms of other things that you've collected over the years, we were talking about collecting cassette tapes back in the day. Do you collect anything now?
Well, I collect these onesies that I have. So do you like onesies?
I do. I have one.
What do you
Does
have?
I have a unicorn
Oh,
onesie.
nice.
Doesn't quite make a collection, but
What inspired you to get a unicorn onesie?
oh, it's kind of a long story. It was a tribute. It's a tribute thing for a friend, a skier friend who's not around anymore. But she used to, back in the day, always the last day of the ski season, rock her unicorn onesie. So now we all do. And
Nice.
yeah. So it's a cool tribute to her. But I gotta say, they're really comfortable, and
Oh, they're so great.
I can see collecting more of them
Yeah,
because
they're super cool. So I have a zebra onesie, I have a lemur onesie, I have a Harry Potter onesie. I think I have a dinosaur onesie. I may have given that one away because it was too big on me. But um, I've attended this thing. It's super fun. Have you heard of this thing called Camp No Counselors? It's
I think I heard about it through you, but I haven't
oh,
heard about it
I might have told you about it, but basically
from anybody else, and it
it's
sounds so
it's a
cool.
it's a three night sleepaway summer camp for adults where you stay in cabins. It's, bunk beds, you eat in this giant mess hall, and then during the day you're doing all your regular camp activities like archery, capture the flag. There's a big talent show, there's a color war race at the very end, all this fun stuff. um, and then at night it's basically a crazy costume party, and a lot of people pack onesies because it's fun, it's easy to party in a onesie, and it's warm and fun and all that stuff. And so I would go with my friends, and we'd always go, with like matching onesies and all that stuff. So
Is this an LA thing?
they have so what they do is they rent out actual summer camps that usually cater to the kids, but
Oh,
for like
okay.
3 days, it's all the adults take it over. But the archery instructor is like the same instructor that would teach the kids, and the cooks and the staff of the camp, they're all the same people there. And so I went to the LA camp, which was like out in the mountains outside of LA. It wasn't in the city. I went to the Nashville camp and then an Austin, Texas camp as well. And super fun, super fun.
Well, I think when this weird time is over, I think I'm just going to have to do that because that sounds amazing. And I've never actually been to camp. I was lucky. My grandparents lived on this awesome lake when I was a kid growing up, so that was our camp, but I've never had the actual camp experience, so I feel like I probably should, and I already
Yeah.
have a onesie, so
Well, there you go. If you already have a onesie, then you're good to go. You have
yeah,
the requirement.
maybe it would be like a good reunion. Maybe you want to meet up at
Yeah, we'll go to summer camp together. Why not? It'll be great.
perfect.
Yeah,
Sounds good to me.
I'm down.
And then just talking about other kind of favorite things recently. Do you have any favorite movies recently or television shows from both past or present?
I just binged the Queen's Gambit, which was
Mm.
awesome on Netflix. That was a super fun one to watch. And I don't know anything about chess, and I don't really have a desire to even play chess. I've never played it, but I thought it was an awesome. Did you see that show, The
I
Queen's
haven't yet.
Gambit?
I'm planning on watching it
Watch it.
next.
Watch
But
it.
I've
It's
heard a lot of people. I've seen or I've heard a lot of people recently were starting to play chess because of it.
yeah,
Were
yeah.
inspired.
It's a good show. It's a good show. So I would check that one out. What else? You know, I'm part of like a horror movie group. So
Ooh.
Michael's part of that as well. Before the pandemic, we would all like a bunch of us would go over to his house. It was like, 8 or 9 of us in this group, and we would just watch a bunch of horror movies together. And during the pandemic, what we do is we each in our own living rooms, we rent like on Amazon, whatever, we'll rent the same horror movie. We'll queue it up at 10 seconds in, and then we all get on Zoom together. And then Michael goes, 3, 2, 1, go. And when he says go, we all hit play together. And so we're basically watching it all at the same time. We're commenting and all that stuff. So we watched like all of the Friday the 13th movies. And then we're almost done watching all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And then the final one is Freddy versus Jason, where they all get together. And I gotta tell you, the majority of these movies are shit. I mean, just the worst. Just I'm like I'm wasting my whole life just watching this crap.
Well,
There's
but they're
some
kind of the worst and the best at the same time.
there's some that are painful. There's a few of the Nightmare on Elm Street and a few of the Friday the 13th are awesome, but the majority of them is just like, are you kidding me? I actually have one. It's I guess it's like the 8th one, uh, which is a remake or something like that of the Nightmare on Elm Street ones. I'm going to be watching that tonight at 9 o'clock when we do our little movie thing.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so that's basically what I've been doing in the pandemic.
Well, I
Music
mean,
and
when you
horror
get,
movies.
I don't know, horror movies are kind of some of my favorite, but in usually in October, I like to start watching scary movies early on in the month up until Halloween. But I was mostly watching on Netflix, and it seems like most of what's on Netflix now is I don't want to talk about on Netflix, but I was looking for all the classic horror movies and I just couldn't find anything. And I just kept watching all of these movies and I found a few good ones, but I mean, just more than anything, I just wanted to watch the
Yeah, well,
classics. And
you should check out Shudder. Shudder
Shudder.
is basically it's the Netflix of horror movies. So
Okay, good
it's
to
like
know.
$5 a month or something like that, $6 a month, and it's just like it's set up just like Netflix, but everything is horror.
Hmm.
So yeah,
There's also something about that genre where a movie, especially an older classic one, it can be a terrible movie. And maybe it also just relates to it being a classic and us having a memory of it. But it's like this is an awful movie, but it's still better than some crappy horror movie that was made in 2020 or something like that. I don't know. Maybe.
What's the scariest movie you've seen?
You know, the one that just comes to my mind immediately, which I actually did see on Netflix, think it's called The Taking of Deborah Logan. Have
I
you
don't know
seen
that
that one?
one. Uh-uh.
Oh my God. Well, okay, so it's really freaky because I actually haven't seen, I meant to watch it again this year. I didn't. But the plot is basically, I think there's a woman who's taking care of her mother, but you don't really know if what her mother is experiencing is just old age or actually demonic possession. And so it's just really freaky for that reason. Uh, it Check it out. It's pretty terrifying. It's definitely one of those ones where you I don't know, you realize you're like have been like holding onto your leg the entire time.
Awesome. I'll definitely check that one out.
I don't know when it was made or who made it or who was in
Okay.
it. I'm really bad at all those things. I think it was a little more recent, but
I'll check that one out.
yeah. And the Babadook. Have you seen the Babadook?
Uh-huh. That's a good one.
I love the Babadook.
Yeah.
Good one. But
Uh-huh.
th- this year on Halloween, we finally resorted to going to a red box and renting Pet Cemetery.
Pet Cemetery or the original Pet Cemetery?
Well, we ended up going for the new one because I'd already seen the old
Yeah.
one, and it was pretty good. But
Yeah, like there's some remakes that are okay and some that are actually really, really good. So I just saw, because I was like a big fan of the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
oh
but
yeah,
with the horror movie group, like a few months ago, we watched the original, which came out in the 70s, like the mid 70s or something like that. I had never seen it before, and I was like, this could come out today. Like I was like so blown away by how brutal and well shot it was. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I was just trying to imagine like people going to the movie theater back in the 70s. And like, there really wasn't anything like that.
before
And
I let you go, I'm also curious about food. So you went to Germany 3 times to play music.
mhm.
And did you do any beer or bratwursts while you were there?
I had a lot of bratwursts. I had this really good currywurst, which was a big sausage with a bunch of curry sauce all over it. It was amazing. I mean, I had some really, just a bunch of great beer, bunch of great food. German food's awesome. It's good
So are
stuff.
you hoping to get planning on going back when that's
Yeah, so we were actually we were in talks of doing another little mini Germany tour this past July, but then the whole lockdown happened and that didn't happen. So it was just going to be Michael and I going out there with our buddy Jason, who was the guy that brought us out there originally. So there were talks about it. That never happened. But we will go out there again. We got a nice little fan base there. There's a good we got a network out there. So it'll happen. Hopefully.
very cool. Very cool. It's
Yeah.
great to talk to you, Rob. Do you have any shout outs to anybody? I
Um,
feel like you've said it.
I think I've said it. I mean, shout out, hi mom, hi dad. If you're listening, here I am. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, enjoy your horror movie streaming night.
I looked up the reviews. It's like 15% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I can log on for you and watch it and pretend that I'm you. Maybe they won't notice.
We look alike.
We look exactly alike.
Exactly alike.
I
Yeah.
don't think anybody would notice.
No, not at all.
Well, thank you so much, Rob. It's
Of
super good to
course.
catch up with you.
Yeah.
For
Super fun.
everybody who's watching, this is still a new show. Do me a solid, like, comment, subscribe, keep the conversation going. We've got a lot more coming up in, I guess, 2021 at this point. So thanks so much.
See ya.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye.